Today, we are diving headfirst into one of the most mind-bending ideas in all of science. It comes from quantum physics, and it could totally change how you think about yourself. What if every single choice you've ever made didn't just create one future, but actually created a whole new universe? And what on earth does that mean for you when you're constantly splitting into an infinite number of copies?
You know that feeling, right? It's a classic dilemma. Let's say you get an incredible job offer, dream job, but it's on the other side of the country, away from everyone you know and love. Part of you wants to go, part of you wants to stay. You just wish you could do both, Live out both versions of your life just to see which one's better.
Well, hold on to your hat, because according to one of the most powerful theories in physics, you don't actually have to choose. The moment you make that decision, the entire universe splits in two. And in a new, parallel reality, another version of you is living out that other life. Now, this isn't some sci-fi movie plot. This is a very serious interpretation of how quantum mechanics might actually work.
Okay, so to understand how this is even remotely possible, we have to get into the science behind it. Let's talk about the many worlds interpretation. So this idea was first cooked up by a physicist named Hugh Everett III way back in the 1950s. The many worlds interpretation, or MWI for short, has a premise that is, it's simple but completely radical. It's like the universe is a giant choose-your-own-adventure story, except it takes every single path. At every quantum fork in the road, the universe doesn't just pick one outcome. Nope, it creates a brand new branch of reality for each and every possibility. The reason this all works is because of a super weird property of the quantum world called superposition. So before you measure a tiny particle, like an electron, it isn't in just one spot. It kind of exists in a blurry cloud of all its potential locations and states at the same time. According to many worlds, when we look at it, we force it to pick one, but the universe doesn't just collapse all the other possibilities. It splits, allowing every single one of those possibilities to become real in its very own world.
And here is where it gets really cool. This whole idea actually solves the famous Schrödinger's cat paradox. You've heard of it, right? This thought experiment says a cat in a sealed box, its fate tied to a random quantum event, is somehow both alive and dead until you open the box and look. That sounds completely nuts, right? Well, Many Worlds says, no, it's simpler than that. The cat isn't both. The moment that quantum event happens, the universe splits. In one universe, you open the box and find a perfectly happy living cat. In another, an identical you opens the box to find a dead one. And the kicker is, both of those realities are equally real. Okay, so if the universe is constantly splitting, and you are made of quantum stuff, that means you're constantly splitting too. And that brings up a really deep and honestly kind of terrifying question. What does that do to your sense of self? Do you even survive the split?
To even start to wrap our heads around this, we need to turn to the philosopher Derek Parfit. He came up with a thought experiment he called fission. He wanted to know what would happen if a person split into two identical copies. But here's the thing, if many worlds is true, this isn't just a quirky philosophical puzzle. It's what is physically happening to us every single moment of every single day.
So let's just walk through this. Meet Alice. Right now, she's one person. Then, poof, she undergoes fission. She splits into two perfect copies. We'll call them lefty and righty. Now, both lefty and righty have every single one of Alice's memories, her personality, her hopes, her fears. From their own points of view, they are Alice. They remember being Alice right up until the moment of the split.
But here's the philosophical trap. Who is the real Alice now? Is she lefty? Is she righty? She can't be identical to both of them, because lefty and righty are now two completely separate people. They're standing in different spots, they're about to go live different lives. So if she's only identical to one of them, what makes that one the special one? And what happened to the other?
And this leads to a pretty brutal conclusion. Logically, identity is a one-to-one relationship. You can't be identical to two different things. So if Alice can't be identical to both lefty and righty, then maybe she isn't identical to either of them. The original Alice is just gone. She didn't survive the split. And if you follow that logic, it means that every quantum event, every tiny decision you make, is the death of the self that existed a moment before.
This whole idea just forces us to completely rethink what a person even is. The physicist Sean Carroll suggests that we're not a single, continuous line through time. Instead, he says our lifespan is like a branching tree, much like a splitting amoeba. We are just constantly dividing. But okay, if our identity is fracturing every second, that leads to another massive problem. If the you who did something yesterday isn't strictly the same you as today, what happens to our ideas about things like moral responsibility? Who gets the blame? Just think about this for a second. In both of these scenarios, you are the cause of your grandmother falling over. But we all know you're only morally responsible in the second one, right? The one where you did it on purpose. That distinction, it's everything.
See, our entire system of justice, our whole idea of morality, really rests on two main pillars. First, that the person being punished is the exact same person who committed the crime. And second, that they chose to do it freely. The many worlds theory comes in and just takes a sledgehammer to both of these ideas.
And this is where free will gets into really hot water. If every single possible outcome is guaranteed to happen somewhere across the multiverse, then every action you take was, in a way, inevitable in that branch of reality. Your choice to do something wasn't really a free choice. It was just a physical certainty. So if your actions are just the universe following its quantum rules, can you really be blamed for them? The whole concept of free will starts to feel a little shaky.
And that brings us to our final and maybe the most profound philosophical challenge of all. What does this infinite branching mean for the existence of an all-powerful, all-loving God?
You know, in our single universe, people have wrestled for centuries with the problem of evil. If God is good, why does he allow suffering? But in the multiverse, that problem just explodes. Because for every version of you that's having a pretty good day, there's another version having a truly terrible one. And somewhere out there, in some branch of reality, there's a version of you experiencing the absolute worst, most horrific suffering imaginable.
Just look at the insane scale of this problem. The amount of suffering in our own world is already a huge challenge for theology. But in a multiverse, the total amount of suffering isn't just big, it's infinite. Every conceivable tragedy, every horror you can think of isn't just a possibility, it's actually happening right now in some universe.
Now, sure, you could argue there must be infinite joy to balance it all out, but are joy and suffering morally equal? This quote from Dostoevsky just hits so hard. It reminds us that a truly good and loving creator, like a good parent, would always prioritize preventing extreme suffering over creating more happiness. A multiverse where the worst imaginable pain is guaranteed to exist seems pretty hard to reconcile with that kind of personal, caring God.
So, where does that leave us? It sounds pretty bleak, right? We've got a fractured self, morality is on shaky ground, and we're living in a possibly godless cosmos. But what if this wild new picture of reality also gives us a radical new kind of freedom?
Maybe the problem is that we've been thinking about the self all wrong. What if it was never this solid, singular thing in the first place? The philosopher Daniel Dennett argued that the self is more like a story we tell ourselves, a center of gravity that we create to organize all our experiences. It's an abstract idea, a useful fiction. And if that's true, then it doesn't really matter if your physical body splits. The story, your story, just keeps going in this branch.
And this, I think, is the truly empowering takeaway from all of this. If there's no singular soul, no cosmic blueprint, and no God looking over everything, then the job of creating meaning falls completely on our shoulders. We get to be the ones who decide what's good, what's valuable, and what really matters in our lives. We are the authors of the story.
In the end, the many worlds theory pushes us to ask the biggest questions there are. It might take apart our old, comfortable ideas about identity and God, but it leaves us with an infinite canvas. Knowing that there are countless other versions of you out there, living out every other possible choice, it makes the life you are living right now, this specific story, uniquely, powerfully, and beautifully yours to define.